Reverend Amos Brown wrote a press release as the chairman of the NAACP to the Reparations Task Force, where he is part of the committee, rejecting the cash payments in favor of education, housing, healthcare, and the Fillmore Center. Reverend Amos Brown is an agent. I'm going to present you with all the facts and reasoning behind his actions. I'll show you why he's only speaking for the benefit of himself and his organizations, and why he doesn't speak for the benefits of the Black community, but rather white supremacy. First, we'll quickly look at his rejection letter and why it doesn't make sense, aside from the spelling errors. Then we'll take a closer look at Reverend Brown himself and some things he said in the past in relation to reparations. Finally, we'll close with the hidden motivation behind Agent Brown rejecting cash payments, and it will shock you. Before we get started, please take a quick second to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I plan to expose more agents in the future, so check back. Let's get into it. Reading his rejection letter doesn't make sense because everything he mentions is already outlined in the proposal. Invest in education, economic empowerment, housing, healthcare, Fillmore Heritage Center. Some of these items are nearly word for word from the proposal, which seem odd. I'll very quickly point out the similarities, then we'll look at Reverend Brown. I'm not going to dive into any of these points because I have a video going through the full proposal and breaking it down. Check that out if you want to get all the important facts from the proposal without reading all 60 pages. I'll have that video linked in the description. Let's run through his rejection points really quickly. First line, he called for the board to reject the $5 million payout and instead call for the city to make investments in 5 key areas mentioned earlier. Invest in education. He suggests we need remedial programs. The proposal has about 5 pages of recommendations addressing educational issues, including interrupting the school to prison pipeline and incentives for Black teachers. Economic empowerment. He wants Black people to get jobs on Joe Biden's infrastructure project. About 2 pages in the proposal for this, including the $5 million payout and other recommendations supporting Black entrepreneurship and skilled job creation. Housing. This caught my attention because of the phrasing, "We want more housing, more public housing, more affordable housing." About a page and a half addressing this point in the proposal, including home ownership programs. Keep this one in mind as we work through the video. Healthcare. He says we need programming for health. 2.5 pages of healthcare recommendations in the proposal. Fillmore Heritage Center. He wants to protect the Heritage Center, the Harlem of the West. The proposal mentions this by name, including seed funding for the next 5 to 10 years. I can only speculate that Agent Brown recommended that part. Interestingly, he did not reject that part of the plan, which would also require significant funding. Now, since none of that makes sense, let's take a look at Agent Brown for other possible motivations. Reverend Brown has said some wild things about reparations, especially since he's been on the committee within the last 2 years. For example, in November of 2021, this article headlined, "San Francisco Black Leaders Press City to Give the Fillmore Heritage Center Back to the Community as Reparations." It starts off reading, "Community leaders, along with actor Danny Glover, held a press event Monday morning at the long-defunct Fillmore Heritage Center complex, calling on the city of San Francisco to donate the center to a new nonprofit representing the local community. The article goes on to read, quote, reparations cannot be confined to big national or statewide actions, said Brown in a statement. Structural racism has had a devastating effect on people's neighborhoods, homes, businesses, and daily lives. So reparations also must include significant actions on a local level. Returning the Fillmore Heritage Center to the community to which it rightfully belongs is exactly that kind of action. Brown called specifically on Mayor London Breed, who represented the neighborhood as supervisor before becoming mayor, to jumpstart the process of transferring ownership. Breed was non-committal in her response. Quote, I would like to see the venue open. I would like to see the venue become a huge success, Breed said. I don't want to see the venue continue to be a financial drain on the city. Breed suggested that it might not be possible under state law to provide it to the community without financial support being attached to it in some capacity. So Reverend Brown is trying to get the Fillmore Center as reparations. The city doesn't even want it because it's defunct, but he still can't get it. Reading between the lines, seems like the mayor couldn't care less. It may be a financial drain on the city, but you still can't have it. Also, asking for a defunct Fillmore Heritage Center as reparations is out of touch with the reality of the Black community. In another article from February 2023 titled, Activists Rally for Reparations at Third Baptist Church Town Hall Meetings. Quote, $5 million is not that much, Brown said Tuesday, citing 246 years of slavery. I can't overstate the importance of reparations. It isn't enough to apologize. Somewhere there has to be reparations. Then the very next line here, it says, Reverend Brown argued that reparations doesn't necessarily have to be in the form of cash. Reparations could also be provided in the form of healthcare, education, employment, and/or affordable housing. He states $5 million isn't that much, then immediately argues reparations doesn't have to be cash. Once again, mentioning affordable housing. Let's take a closer look at Reverend Brown, and you'll find it's pretty easy to see why he keeps mentioning affordable housing. Reverend Brown is the president of the NAACP San Francisco chapter and has been the reverend of the Third Baptist Church since 1976. Here's a couple of things I found interesting about his About page on the church website. First, here's his accomplishments he lists. Sponsored more African refugees than any local congregation in the nation, and sponsored 80 children from Tanzania to receive heart surgery in the United States. He led the Bay Area in raising $68,000 for the Somalian relief effort in 1984, led in the founding the Black American response to the African crisis, which raised $300,000 for the Ethiopian famine crisis, and led to an airlift to Ethiopia. Here's something else. He's a native of Jackson, Mississippi. So he's not even from San Francisco, rejecting reparations on their behalf. Looking deeper into the church, it sued the nonprofit it created for trying to sell the affordable housing complex it founded. First, the city told the nonprofit to stop trying to sell it. Then the church sued the nonprofit. Third Baptist Church sued Third Baptist Gardens, Inc. in late July, accusing the nonprofit it founded in 1969 of illegally trying to sell Frederick Douglass Haynes Gardens for a $40 million profit and displacing longtime tenants. The board of the nonprofit was disbanded after the lawsuit, then not much information can be found. Public records show the nonprofit Third Baptist Gardens, Inc. made about $1.5 million every year for the exception of 2020, where it made nearly $16 million as net gain from sale of non-inventory assets. Also, it's important to note that Reverend Brown is listed as a key employee and officer. On a 2019 Form 990, it says at the bottom, HUD has approved Human Good Affordable Housing to manage Third Baptist Gardens, Inc. That appears to be the latest filing from the nonprofit. Even when pulling up the business profile, all links and records lead to the church website. No other records of the nonprofit could be found. So it's pretty safe to say that Third Baptist Gardens and Third Baptist Church are essentially the same organization. At the very least, they're subsidiaries. Now let's explore Reverend Brown's connection to affordable housing a little more closely. I have already presented you with much information showing how Third Baptist Church is connected to Frederick Douglass Haynes Apartments. Even when going to the official site, you find founded by Third Baptist Church and managed by Human Good, Frederick Douglass Haynes Gardens serves low-income residents in the heart of San Francisco's Fillmore district. Looks like they just got a good amount of funding in August of 2020. The press release from the development company reads, starting in Northern California and in partnership with Third Baptist Church, Beacon Development Group, and Human Good Affordable Housing successfully closed on a $100 million low-income housing tax credit financing for the renovation of 104 units at Frederick Douglass Haynes Gardens Apartments. This redevelopment will improve the quality of living for the residents and preserves the community's affordability for years to come. Frederick Douglass Haynes serves low-income families in the heart of San Francisco's Fillmore district. Closed on $100 million in financing, just in case you missed that. And it looks like the project was completed in April of 2022. This press release does oddly mention Reverend Brown as the pastor of Third Baptist Gardens, Inc., but their client page lists Third Baptist Church as a client. Anyways, the press release reads, residents of the 104 family community were able to return to fully renovated apartments with all new infrastructure, including new electrical, plumbing, and all new kitchens, bathrooms, flooring, in addition to a new community room, courtyard, children's play structure, resident services, coordinator's office, and resident barbecue area. $100 million to renovate a building with 104 units breaks down to about $960,000 per unit, not including community additions. Getting the money to the community would have been more beneficial to the residents as opposed to renovating units they don't even own. I also want to point out it's likely I couldn't find any records after a certain point because churches don't file public tax records. Check it out right here. Based on IRS regulations, churches that meet the requirements of a 5013C status are not required to file an annual return. These organizations are exempt from filing annual returns. Reverend Amos Brown has a direct connection to affordable housing through the church. This could explain why he mentions affordable housing so much in relation to his position with the NAACP. Not economically empowering Black people works in the favor of his organizations and partners. This is why he was posturing by writing a press release as the NAACP chairman to reject a recommendation on the committee he currently serves. He could have kept this within the organization. He could have kept this between himself and the other members. He could have just silently disagreed with that portion, but agreed with others like the Fillmore Heritage Center seed funding. but he publicly disagreed for one reason. He's an agent of white supremacy, wearing the robes of a trusted pastor. Quick side note, an issue with religion in the Black community is this notion that poverty is the way to salvation. In the same regards, the church makes money from the members while those same members remain in poverty. This has become one of many obstacles in regards to keeping the community on code. Back to Agent Brown. We must make it known that the Black community does not stand behind people like Agent Brown. He does not speak for us. We have never demanded more affordable housing. We demand reparations for the legal policies that blocked our community from building wealth during slavery, Reconstruction, Jim Crow, redlining, and even into the present. Some of those laws are still in existence today. For example, Proposition 209, as pointed out in the reparations proposal. Don't forget to check out my full breakdown of the reparations proposal linked in the description. For the same amount of money it costs to renovate the building, each of those tenants could have purchased a house and began building generational wealth. Instead, Agent Brown is fighting for those people to stay in affordable housing with little chance to escape the vicious cycle of discrimination they've been facing for generations. We must remove these agents from positions of power because we are fighting a common enemy in white supremacy and must work cohesively. We must stay on code in the Black community. Leave it to Agent Brown, we'll get reparations in the form of affordable housing. We don't want affordable housing, we want houses. We are owed the wealth that we have been blocked from creating as a community, and those blockages continue to this day. I'm going to wrap up this video here. If you haven't already, check out my summary of the reparations plan where I point out the most important facts and data. Learn everything you need to know about the proposal without having to read all 60 pages. Again, hit the like button, subscribe, support the channel. I'm out.